This is the homework helper for Chapter 8, Section 1 in the 7th grade workbook, Building Blocks of Geometry. Now, as we look at the first three questions, the first three questions here are in chunks 1 through 5 and 6 through 10 and 11 through 15 as you go down the page are basically asking you for the same things. So we're going to go ahead and work on 1 through 5, and then you'll use the same ideas in solving 6 through 10 and 11 through 15. So what we're doing here is we're looking at the illustration and identifying the things they're asking me for here. So the first thing they're asking me for in question number 1 are points. So those have to be marked, and those are just points that are on the illustration. So as you can see, they've marked point A here, point B, point C, and point D. And we only need 3, but I'm going to go ahead and write down all 4. We can answer for number 1, A, B, C, or D. Now in question number 2, they're asking me for a line. Now what makes a line in terms of its geometry here? It has to have arrowheads on both ends. So we're looking for something that has arrowheads on both ends. Well, as we look across this B to C structure here, that has arrowheads on both ends. Now you see an arrowhead here on this thing that goes from B to D, all right, but there's not an arrowhead up here on the B side. Same thing here from C to D. All right, we see an arrowhead here on the D side, but there's no arrowhead back over here on the C side. So the only thing that has the arrowheads on both sides is this thing that goes back and forth between B and C. So that's the line. So we're going to write that down here. There's a couple different ways we can write that. We can write BC, or we can write CB. It doesn't matter which way we call it, it's the same thing. Now, as far as writing it down properly, the symbol for that is actually putting a line over the top of it. So that's the same marker that you see here that we've drawn, putting it over the top of BC or CB. Now in question number 3, they're asking me to name a plane. So a plane is just 3 letters in the same two-dimensional space put together here. So you've got a lot of different options here. You've got ABD could be a plane, ACD could be a plane, ABC could be a plane, ACB could be a plane, BDC could be a plane, CDB could be a plane. Again, it's just me putting together 3 letters from the same two-dimensional space here. So whatever you write here, as long as you're putting 3 letters together, is probably going to work here. I'm going to stick with ABC, not be too original, and make it easy on myself. As far as markers for a plane goes, there is nothing to write there. There's no symbolic representation. We just write ABC. Now in question number 4, they're asking me for a ray. A ray has it's like a line, but it's got the arrowhead only on one end. Now we've already talked about a couple different ones. We said earlier that B to D would be one of these because it's got an arrowhead here on the D side. And we also said earlier that C to D would be a ray if we end at the D side. So that's 2 of our answers here. Now as far as the symbolic representation here, you draw a ray over the top. So that it's got the marker with an arrowhead just on one side. What's important here when you write this is the arrowhead actually has to be on the same side as where the arrowhead is here in the drawing. So notice here on the B to D one, the arrowhead is at the D side here. So I draw the arrowhead here on the D side. With C to D, again, same thing. The arrowhead is here on the D side. So when we write the answer here, we put the arrowhead on the D side. Now the other one is maybe less obvious, or my other 2 answers rather. It's on this B to C line here that we can find our other 2 rays. If I consider just starting at the point marked B and going to the right, no longer is it a line because it has a beginning point and continues forever in the direction of C. So one of the other rays here is B going towards C. The other option would be the reverse, starting at C and heading back to B would also be considered a ray here, again having an arrowhead on just the B side. And then finally, looking for 3 line segments in number 5. So that's part of a line, or part of a ray would be a line segment. And as you can see, we've got a bunch here that go around the shape. The four sides of this quadrilateral here would all be line segments. And then we could also use the line that runs across the quadrilateral here. We only need three. We've already used B to C a couple different ways, but we can use it again here. BC is a line segment, and it also has a representation that is itself a line segment. We put the line segment over the top. It's just like a line symbol, but it doesn't have the arrowheads on either side. AB would be a line segment going from A to B, going from point to point. B to D would be a line segment, again going from point to point. D to C would be a line segment going from point to point. And C to A would also be a line segment going from point to point. And of course, those two can be written the opposite direction. If you don't like writing C to A, you can write it as A to C. Again, you only need three answers there. There's 5 possible answers there for you, not including the writing the same thing going in the opposite direction. All right, let's go ahead and go down to the bottom of the page and look at question number 16 now. In 16, it's asking me to identify the line segments that are congruent in the figure. Now, when we're looking for congruency, we're looking at the markers that are on the illustration. As you can see here, if we look at the shape going from left to right, this side here, and this side here all have one little line marker running through them. What those markers indicate are what segments are congruent, what segments have the same length. And because they all have one marker going through them, we know that those are all the same. So that's our first answer here. We're going to say that this line segment, AD, is going to be the same as this line segment here that also has one marker going through it, BE, is also the same as this segment here that has one marker going through it, CF. Now, then we've got some different markers here. At this one at the top here, BC, we have 3 markers. At this one down here at the bottom, EF, we also have 3 line markers there. That indicates that those two are the same because they both have 3 line markers through them. Whatever measurement it is isn't really relevant. All we're asking is which ones are the same. We're not asking how long they are. And you can see just looking at it, they look the same. All right, they're obviously opposite sides of that rectangle. They would have to be congruent. So here we're going to say that BC is the same as EF. All right, we've got these line segments here that have 2 line markers going through them. So they would have to be the same because they both have 2 line markers going through them. So our third set of answers here is going to say that AB is congruent to DE. And again, they look the same because they're opposite sides of the rectangle. So they would have to be the same. Now there's one other answer here that's perhaps less obvious. If this line segment here has 3 line markers and this one has 2 line markers, this one here has 3 line markers, and this one here has 2 line markers, then that means the longer sides of the bigger rectangle also have to be the same. And again, we can see that they're opposite sides of the rectangle. They would have to be the same. So we're going to say that side AC here, the longer side of the bigger rectangle, is the same as DF, which is the longer side of the rectangle on the bottom. Again, we're not saying how long they are. We're just simply indicating that they are the same.